Chapter 81. Surge in Spiritual Power. Please keep it down. A nurse in the hallway heard noises coming from the room. She opened the door and gently scolded the occupants. However, when she saw Lu Wu's terrifying gaze, her heart skipped a beat and her face turned pale. She quickly closed the door and retreated. The nurse patted her barely moving chest and thought, "Gulp." That look was so frightening. She could feel her heart still pounding. After overcoming her fear, she glanced angrily at the door before walking away. Inside the room, Lu Wu had stopped making a fuss. His face was gloomy, and with his head lowered, his expression was unclear. However, his entire body radiated a dangerous aura. Despite being injured, Lu Wu left the medical room shortly after regaining consciousness. As he left, people saw him with a grim expression, seemingly muttering something to himself. "I don't accept it. I don't accept that you're stronger than me." Not. He kept repeating these words as if in a trance, though no one knew what he was saying. He appeared to be acting like a madman. Back at home, Yiling went straight to the couch and let out a long sigh of relief. If he hadn't suddenly obtained the system, he might have missed his chance to become a spirit master. He took out all the materials stored in his space ring and listed them for sale online, one by one. These were materials obtained from monsters he had hunted in the secret realm. Selling them would bring in at least 50,000 to 60,000 Federation points. Adding the 105,000 Federation points from Huasiener, Yiling would have over 150,000 points. This was a considerable sum, making him relatively well off at present. However, 150,000 Federation points weren't that much. If he wanted to buy materials for himself or Shuiyu's next evolution stage, it was far from enough. The higher the grade of evolution materials, the more valuable they were, as they came from higher-level monsters. With these 150,000 Federation points, he could only afford a few evolution materials at best. Indeed, being a spirit master was an expensive profession. Yiling opened his system attribute panel again. Host, Yiling. Level, First Order level 9. Spiritual Power, 900/900. Spirit Skills, Spirit Chain, level 2. Spirit Shield, level 1. Spirit Vision, level 1. Spirit Pet, Shuiyu. Free points, 2. He then checked Shuiyu's data panel. Name, Shuiyu, White-Eyed Zombie. Type, Undead. Level, First Order level 9. Experience, 99.4%. Growth Potential, Uncommon. Growth Rate, 68.7%. Equipment, Shuiyu's exclusive blood-stained robe. Talents, Physical Damage Reduction, Intermediate. Magic Damage Reduction, Intermediate. Super Speed Regeneration, Blood Mist Transformation. Skills, Bloodthirst, Blood Frenzy. Tasks, 1. Automatic Item Pickup Task, incomplete. 2. Pass the first examination, completed. Reward, 3 Spiritual Power Crystals. Having successfully passed the first examination, Yiling had completed the system-issued task. He took out the reward, 3 Spiritual Power Crystals. In his hand appeared 3 blue-green rhomboid crystals. Information about the Spiritual Power Crystals automatically appeared before Yiling's eyes. Spiritual Power Crystal contains a portion of spiritual power. When used, each crystal grants the user 500 points of spiritual power. Although the description was brief, the function of the spiritual power crystals was powerful. Yiling now had 3 crystals, which could increase his spiritual power by 1,500 points. Combined with his original 900 points, he could instantly reach a capacity of 2,400 spiritual power points. For context, most First-Order Spirit Masters had a maximum of 1,000 spiritual power points. Only after reaching Second Order would they exceed 1,000 points, with a typical Second-Order Spirit Master having a maximum of 5,000 points. Yiling's spiritual power was now approaching half that of an average Second-Order level 10 Spirit Master, an incredibly formidable figure. Although the level 2 Spirit Chain consumed 300 spiritual power points each time, Yiling could now use it 8 times in quick succession. This meant that he was almost certain to win the second stage of the examination. No student in the school had a spirit pet that had broken through to Second Order, which meant that no opponent could break free from Yiling's level 2 Spirit Chain. How could anyone compete with that? It was almost certain that Yiling would win first place. Chapter 82. Still obsessed with Federation points. Ding ding ding. Suddenly, a sound came from the computer. Yiling got up and walked over, seeing that someone had made an offer to buy the materials he had listed. Just like in Yiling's previous world, this world also had courier companies. However, the Federation and several prominent families collaborated to establish this courier company. In this world overrun by magical beasts, only the Federation and these powerful families had the resources to undertake such an operation. All items were transported by air, accompanied by powerful spirit master to protect against strong magical beasts. Of course, accidents still happen occasionally. If they met an extremely powerful flying magical beast, the entire cargo could be destroyed. Such incidents were rare but had occurred before. In this world, there were no other transportation methods besides this unless one delivered goods themselves. However, if one's strength is insufficient, self-delivery may result in a one-way trip. Although shipping fees were relatively high, they were generally acceptable. Sure enough, someone arrived at the door shortly after. Dressed in a uniform, they said they were here to collect the courier items. After handing over the goods, the courier left. It was that simple, and as long as no magical beast attacked during transport, any damage to the items would be compensated. Although Yiling hadn't received the Federation points yet, it was only a matter of time. Furthermore, he would receive an additional 105,000 Federation points tomorrow, which could count as small bonus. Yiling decided to treat himself to a nice meal at noon to celebrate passing the first stage of the examination. Of course, Yiling wouldn't forget his good friend when celebrating. He called Chenji and arranged a place to eat. After some hesitation, he also called Huasiener. As for how Yiling knew Huasiener's number, he had discovered a piece of paper in his pocket after returning home. It had a phone number written on it. Since he had only been in close contact with two people, Chenji, whom he met when leaving, and Huasiener, with whom he spent a day in the secret realm, it was obvious the number belonged to Huasiener. "Hello. Who is this?" Huasiener's voice came through after the call connected. "This is Yiling. I'm planning to go out for a meal with my friend. Would you like to join us?" At that moment, Huasiener, who was enjoying a bath in her spacious tub, immediately recognized Yiling's voice. She was relieved that her phone number had not gone to waste, and that this man had called her. Hearing that Yiling was inviting her to eat together, Huasiener certainly wouldn't refuse. Wiping the water from her face with a towel, she replied with a smile. "Of course. Time and place. XXXX Hui Huang Road, before 1 o'clock. Yiling's voice came through the phone, giving the detailed time and location. Huasiener's lips curved upward. "All right, I got it. I'll be there." Eating was one purpose, but Yiling hadn't forgotten the other. "Okay, don't forget my Federation points." Indeed, he was still obsessed with Federation points. Thinking of this, Huasiener felt quite annoyed. "By the way, Yiling, But before Huasiener could finish, the call disconnected. Her words cut off, and the phone now giving a busy signal, Huasiener's mood suddenly soured. She had never had someone hang up on her before. Yiling was the first. "You Yiling, how dare you hang up on me? I'll remember this." Huasiener gritted her teeth, glaring at the phone showing the ended call. Since Yiling now had some income, earning quite a bit just from selling materials, he chose a fancy restaurant for their meal. Being a spirit master was not only an expensive profession, but also one where money could be made quickly. Some spirit masters could even become rich overnight if they obtained a rare material. Yiling arrived at the meeting point first. The place he chose wasn't too far from his residence. It was a luxurious and stylish hotel called the Hui Huang Grand Hotel, where the prices were not low. In the past, Yiling would never have considered visiting such a place. Generally, only the spirit master could afford to dine here. Ordinary people, even if they came, couldn't afford the prices. Chapter 83. Who is she? A single meal here, or even just one dish, could cost as much as an ordinary person's monthly income. After waiting outside for a short while, they saw Chenji running over. Compared to his dejected appearance at the end of the exam, Chenji had tidied himself up and now looked like a spirited young man. "Yiling, wow. You must have struck it rich to come to a place like this." When Chenji first received the call, he couldn't believe it. The Hui Huang Grand Hotel is currently the largest and most prestigious hotel in Radiant City. Chenji could only imagine how expensive it must be. The fact that Yiling chose to treat them to a meal here made Chenji suspect that his friend had indeed come into a lot of money. Huh. I just sold some materials and made a small profit. Plus, didn't we just pass the first stage of the exam today? It's a perfect opportunity to celebrate and have a good meal. Besides, after tomorrow, we might go our separate ways. Who knows when we'll meet again? Yiling said with a laugh, putting his arm around Chenji's shoulder. Of course, Yiling knew how expensive this place was, but now he had money and knew how to earn more. Given enough time, his system would drive him to the top of the world. He might even become a big shot in this world, possibly even reaching the pinnacle and becoming the strongest. Hearing this, Chenji sighed. That's right. We'll be going our separate ways tomorrow. Let's go in quickly. Today, I'm going to take full advantage of you rich guy. It was Chenji's first time at the Huihuang Grand Hotel, so he was naturally excited and eager to go in. However, Yiling quickly held him back and explained, Old Chen, don't rush. There's still one person who hasn't arrived yet. Let's wait for her to come, then we'll go in together. The her Yiling mentioned was, of course, Huasiener. Naturally, Chenji had no idea Yiling and Huasiener were related in any way. Her? Which her? Don't tell me it's your girlfriend, Chenji said with a mischievous grin, nudging Yiling with his elbow. Hearing this, Yiling didn't know how to respond. Oh? He and Huasiener had no relationship. In the secret realm, they were merely employer and bodyguards. What kind of relationship could they possibly have? Old Chen, stop imagining things. We just met in the secret realm and can barely be considered friends. Since we're having a meal, I thought it would be nice to invite her along. Yiling explained while silently adding in his heart, if you knew I had 105,000 Federation points stored with her, you'd probably die of envy. Yiling didn't mention anything about the Federation points. After all, it was a transaction between him and Huasiener, and there was no need for everyone to know about it. Oh, so you made a friend, huh? Just a friend or a girlfriend? What's her name? Tell me, maybe I know her? Chenji was now full of curiosity about this person Yiling mentioned. Yiling had never been good at making friends before, somewhat similar to what people in his previous world would call socially anxious. In the entire class, Chenji was his only friend, let alone friends from other classes. Yiling didn't know how to respond to Chenji's wild speculations. His imagination was certainly vivid. Damn it, can you not be so nosy? We've only known each other for a day. How could she be my girlfriend? For heaven's sake, I think you're still dreaming, Yiling exclaimed. But Chenji persisted. Come on, tell me. We're brothers, aren't we? It's not right to keep the good news from me. Just as Yiling was about to say something, a sudden car horn interrupted their chat. Babe. The sudden honking abruptly ended Yiling and Chenji's casual conversation. Screech. A sports car pulled off a beautiful drift, stopping precisely in front of the two. Wow, that's some driving. What a beautiful car. Chenji's eyes were full of envy as he looked at the sports car. However, he could only admire it from afar. After all, such things were luxury items, far beyond the reach of an ordinary person like him. While Chenji was still admiring the car, Yiling suddenly patted his shoulder and nodded toward where the car had stopped. She's here. Didn't you want to see? That's her. Hearing this, Chenji was shocked. The person Yiling mentioned, the other one coming for dinner, couldn't be the driver of this sports car, could it? But how could Yiling know someone from such a wealthy background? Didn't he say they met in the secret realm? Could it be that Yiling had saved her there? But with his abilities, Chenji could not figure it out, no matter how hard he tried. Then, under Chenji's astonished gaze, Huasiener, dressed in youthful and stylish clothes, stepped out of the sports car. Chapter 84. Meeting the second son of the Hua family. When he saw Huasiener's face, Chenji was stunned. Huo. He stammered, unable to say Huasiener's name, clearly shocked. Huasiener? Yiling calmly introduced. Still finding it hard to believe, Chenji rubbed his eyes vigorously, wanting to see more clearly. With a wry smile, Chenji said enviously, It is. Olji, my dear brother, what on earth did you do? How did you get involved with the Hua family's young miss? It was impossible not to be envious. To be connected with the young miss of the Hua family from Radiant City was remarkable. Even if one couldn't pass the assessment to become a spirit master, their future career would be smooth sailing. The Hua family's reputation in Radiant City alone was enough. He wondered what kind of luck his friend had to be associated with Huasiener. He had thought Yiling was lucky enough to pass the first stage of the assessment, but this was beyond comparison. Yiling, who is this? As she walked up, Huasiener looked at Yiling and Qinji next to him with a questioning expression. Initially, Huasiener had thought it would be just her and Yiling, which had made her quite happy. It meant Yiling considered her a friend, or at least their relationship had grown closer. However, she hadn't expected someone else to be present. This gathering was just a friendly meal, nothing more. Realizing this, Huasiener felt a bit gloomy. Was she not attractive enough? Or had she lost her charm? Why did Yiling seem to have so little interest in her? After all, she was the school beauty with undeniable good looks. But this guy in front of her seemed as dense as a block of wood, showing no interest in her. This was quite a blow to Huasiener. "Let me introduce you to each other," Yiling said. "Huasiener needs no introduction, old Chen. You surely know her. This is my good friend, Chen Ji, who has often helped me in the past. He also passed the first stage of the assessment, so you might encounter each other in the upcoming stages." After the introductions, Huasiener finally knew who this person was. "Miss Hua," hello, Chen Ji greeted, appearing very nervous, unlike his earlier teasing of Yiling, especially when he recalled his earlier joke about whether the person coming was Yiling's girlfriend. Chen Ji felt even more embarrassed. The other party was the young miss of the Hua family, not someone a small figure like him could easily tease. Huasiener politely nodded. "Hello," she replied briefly, not saying much more. After all, they had no connection other than Yiling between them. Without Yiling, they might never have had the chance to meet. Being from different social classes, they would likely have no interaction. Seeing Chen Ji become so nervous, Yiling smiled and patted his shoulder. "All right, let's go in and eat." The three then walked into the Hui Huang Grand Hotel. As they left, a bodyguard-like figure in the car, Huasiener, had arrived and took out a phone and made a call. "Sir, the young miss is at the Hui Huang Grand Hotel and seems to be having a meal with others. Should I follow them inside?" This bodyguard was arranged by Huasiener's father, Hua Qingshan, to protect her. A mature, steady middle-aged man's voice came from the other end of the phone. "No need. If it's Siener's friend, I trust she has her judgment. I'm curious about who this friend of hers is. Look into it for me. Find out who Siener's friend is. I want to see if he has any ulterior motives in approaching her." Having received the order from his master, the bodyguard naturally agreed. "Yes, sir. I'll investigate immediately." Given the Hua family's status in Radiant City, gathering information on someone was a simple task. At that moment, in the Hua family's mansion, Hua Qingshan was sitting in a pavilion in the courtyard. After hanging up the phone, his expression remained unchanged. He wasn't worried about Huasiener getting into trouble. He had great confidence in his clever daughter. Groomed from a young age to be the next family head, Huasiener was not someone easily fooled. Besides, this was Radiant City. Who would dare to act recklessly in front of the Hua family? "Dad!" A youthful and beautiful figure came running from the corridor. Hua Qingshan smiled softly as soon as he heard the voice. Seeing the youthful and beautiful figure appear before him, he said cheerfully, "Isn't this Linger?" "What?" "There is no need to study hard today." Dressed in green clothing, with delicate features, a slender figure, and long legs, she looked very similar to Huasiener, with only slight differences. This was Hua Qingshan's other daughter, Hualinger, Huasiener's younger sister, and the Hua family's second young miss. However, they were not born in the same year. Hualinger was born more than a year after Huasiener. Currently, Hualinger is in her second year at Radiant High School. This time next year would be her turn to take the Spirit Master assessment. Hualinger's eyes sparkled with mischief as she heard this. "Oh, Dad, the things they teach at school are just too easy. I learned them in no time, so it's boring." Hualinger pouted, pulling up a chair to sit beside Hua Qingshan. Despite being from a noble family, compared to her sister Huasiener, Hualinger could be described as quirky and lively. This was because she had been her father's favorite since childhood. She would do anything to get her whatever she wanted. Compared to the mature and capable Huasiener, who could already handle significant responsibilities, Hualinger was still a child. However, Hua Qingshan was satisfied with this. He had already raised one excellent daughter. There was no need to deprive the other of her freedom. Although the thought of Huasiener's hardships made Hua Qingshan feel guilty, he was also helpless. It was all for the sake of the family. "By the way, where's Big Sister?" I wanted to congratulate her on passing the first stage of the assessment, but I don't see her around, Hualinger asked curiously, wondering why she couldn't find her sister. Chapter 85. Your payment has been delivered. Normally, Hualinger was the most attached to her sister, Huasiener. She would often follow Huasiener around like a tail. Hualinger stopped following Huasiener on Father Hua Qingshan's orders only recently when she was preoccupied with her last training sprint. Otherwise, Huasiener might not have been able to break through to level 8 of the First Order. After all, her younger sister could be quite bothersome. Hua Qingshan furrowed his brow at hearing his younger daughter speak in such a manner. A father knows his daughter best. How could he not understand what his mischievous little girl was thinking? He affectionately patted Hualinger's head and said earnestly, "Your sister went out to meet a friend. Don't disturb her right now. You have only a year left before your assessment. Focus on your practice, and don't make any mistakes." His elder daughter had already passed the first stage of the assessment. In Qingshan's view, the second stage would be even simpler. The first stage had more uncertainties, while the second stage was purely a test of raw ability. With Huasiener's abilities, she was almost guaranteed admission to the Black Tortoise Spirit Master Academy. The only thing that worried him now was his second daughter, who still had a childish mindset and lacked maturity. Upon hearing her father's words, Hualinger pouted unhappily. "Fine, don't tell me then. All you ever do is tell me to practice. I finally get a break, and I'm not listening to you anymore." With that, Hualinger dashed away. She didn't necessarily need to ask her father about her sister's whereabouts. She could just as easily find out from the butler. After running out, Hualinger found the butler and, through a mix of threats and persuasion, finally got him to reveal the truth. So, sister went to the Hui Huang Grand Hotel. In that case, I'll go. Now that she knew where her sister had gone, Hualinger naturally couldn't just sit at home doing nothing. She was eager to see who this so-called friend of Huasiener's was. As far as she knew, Huasiener's friendships at school were merely polite and superficial. She had never gone out to eat with friends before. So this unusual situation naturally piqued Hualinger's curiosity. Grabbing one of her cars, Hualinger snuck out of the Hua family residence, heading for the Hui Huang Grand Hotel. Meanwhile, at the Hui Huang Grand Hotel, Yiling and his companions arrived at a private room. Being a high-end restaurant, it wasn't usually very crowded, and private rooms were generally available without the need to compete for them. This was the first time Yiling and Qinji had entered such a luxurious hotel. After all, they were just ordinary students who previously couldn't afford to dine in such an upscale establishment. Looking around, Yiling appeared very calm and composed. This wasn't an act. After his rebirth, such things no longer surprised him. Qinji, on the other hand, was like a country bumpkin in the big city, glancing here and there while being extremely careful not to damage any of the expensive-looking decorations in the room. One careless move could cost a fortune in Federation points, which would be quite a burden for Qinji. As for Huasiener, there was no need to mention her familiarity with such places. Someone of her status could dine in hotels like this any time. Naturally, they left the ordering to Huasiener, who had more experience. She knew what dishes were good and what weren't. When ordering, Huasiener casually rattled off the names of several dishes to the waiter without even glancing at the menu. Just hearing the names of these dishes, Qinji could tell this meal wouldn't be cheap. He knew this was Yiling's threat, but he was well aware of Yiling's situation. His circumstances were even worse than Qinji's, as he relied on the Federation's assistance to attend school. How could he afford such luxury? As Qinji's mind was filled with doubts, Huasiener pulled a card from her bag and handed it to Yiling. "Yiling, this is the payment we agreed on earlier," she said. "I'm giving it to you now, so that certain people can't accuse me of defaulting." Huasiener gritted her teeth as she emphasized the word payment. She was annoyed by Yiling's attitude towards her in the secret realm. "Dang, your payment has been delivered." Of course, this wasn't a system notification, but rather a special effect Yiling added for himself. Chapter 86. Will they end their friendship? Yiling was in a good mood, but Huasiener wasn't feeling great. From a young age, she had always been the center of attention. No matter what she did, she would attract everyone's gaze. However, Yiling seemed to disregard her completely, which was quite a blow to Huasiener. After all, she was used to being the focus of attention, and suddenly being ignored made her feel unbalanced. This was understandable. Most importantly, Didn't Yiling realize that building a good relationship with her was more valuable than 105,000 Federation points? As the young mistress of the Hua family, having a good relationship with her would be incredibly beneficial, especially once she became the head of the family. Many people tried to curry favor with her just to make a good impression, but Yiling didn't seem to care about her status at all. Huixiener couldn't understand why. Didn't Yiling need connections and resources? Looking at the Federation card held out to him, Yiling took it without hesitation. However, Huixiener didn't let go immediately, instead staring intently at Yiling. Yiling, in your eyes, is my friendship worth less than 105,000 Federation points? Hearing this, Yiling smiled. Miss Hua, you know my situation. Of course, the Federation points are more important to me right now. It's just being realistic. As for your friendship, if I take this card, would you end our friendship? Yiling had invited Huixiener out for a meal, and she had agreed without hesitation. It was clear that Huixiener valued their relationship. Therefore, whether or not Yiling took the 105,000 Federation points, Huixiener wouldn't end their friendship. With Yiling's strength even surpassing her own and his talent exceeding hers, his future achievements would undoubtedly be significant. Huixiener wouldn't choose to end her friendship with someone worth investing in. She would want to maintain their relationship. Seeing the confident smile on Yiling's face, Huixiener gritted her teeth in frustration. She sighed and finally let go of the Federation card. She knew Yiling was right. She didn't want to end their friendship, not only because she had some fondness for Yiling, but also because she wanted him to remember her kindness. At least in the future, no matter what happens, Yiling might not stand against her or her family. Fine. You win. You're right. I'm being thick-skinned. Happy now. Huixiener said, crossing her arms and turning away, not wanting to look at his annoying face. Chen Ji, who sat next to Yiling, remained silent, but he had heard some incredible information. The Federation card in Yiling's hand contained 105,000 points. For Chen Ji, this was an astronomical figure. He had never seen so many Federation points at once in his entire life. His gaze flickered between Yiling and Huixiener, a big question forming in his mind. What exactly was going on between these two? Why would Huixiener give Yiling such a large sum of Federation points out of the blue? His eyes lingered on the Federation card, and Chen Ji unconsciously swallowed, his voice rising involuntarily. Gulp. Old Ji, are there 105,000 Federation points in there? Yiling played with the card in his hand and nodded. That's right, there's 105,000 Federation points in here. Chen Ji's reaction was understandable. If it weren't for his rebirth, the previous Yiling probably wouldn't have been much better off than the current Chen Ji. While envious, Chen Ji felt no jealousy, only happiness for his friend. You rascal, you managed to earn such a big sum from Miss Hua. Well, I won't hold back today then. If Chen Ji had been hesitant about coming to eat here at first, now he had no worries. A meal at this high-end hotel would usually cost a few thousand to 10,000 Federation points at most, so there was no concern about Yiling not being able to afford it. Since Yiling had invited him, it meant he didn't mind treating Chen Ji, so naturally, Chen Ji wouldn't be polite about it. As for what kind of deal was between Yiling and Huixiener, Chen Ji didn't ask too many questions. Chen Ji would not ask because neither of them had explicitly mentioned it. Although he was confused, he was not a gossipy person. They talked casually, and then the door to the private room opened, and dishes began to be served. Looking at the exquisite delicacies placed on the table, Chen Ji felt his mouth watering. Yiling felt similarly. Although he had been reborn for some time, this was his first time eating at such a high-end place. While his cooking was decent, it was still quite far from the quality of the hotel's dishes. Chapter 87. Removal of the Young Master. While Yiling's group was celebrating passing the first stage of the assessment, someone else was not feeling so comfortable. That person, naturally, was Lu Wu. Among all the second-tier family forces in Radiant City, Lu Wu of the Lu family was the only one who failed to pass the first stage of the assessment. Lu Wu could be said to have thoroughly disgraced the entire Lu family. Because of this incident, Lu Wu was now kneeling in the Lu family's main hall. Seated around him were various influential elders of the Lu family. Sitting in the center was Lu Wu's father, Lu Yun, the head of the Lu family. At this moment, Lu Yun looked at Lu Wu kneeling in the center of the hall, his heart filled with rage. He had repeatedly instructed Lu Wu to find a way to pass the first stage of the assessment. If he could enter the second stage, with Lu Wu's poisonous scaled python, he could not be able to enter the top-tier Spirit Master Academy. As long as he could enter a high-level or even top-tier Spirit Master Academy, Lu Wu would be fully qualified to be groomed as the family heir. But now all of that had turned to nothing. Lu Yun had only one son in his lifetime, and his son's inability to inherit the family was an enormous blow to him. Thinking about this, Lu Yun wished he could send Lu Wu back to the womb to be retrained. Lu Wu's talent was insufficient, and Lu Yun had spent a significant amount of resources and energy to help him. Yet earlier, Lu Wu had given this kind of response. Family head, shouldn't you give us an explanation for this matter? Now that Lu Wu cannot enter a Spirit Master Academy, he can no longer hold the position of young master, one elder said. That's right, family head. Regardless of the process, the result is that Lu Wu has lost his qualification to inherit the family. This point is indisputable, another added. Indeed, Lu Wu should now hand over the position of young master to a qualified youth of the Lu family. A third elder chimed in. Family head, there's no need to hesitate anymore. Given the circumstances, please take action. You wouldn't hand over the entire family to an incompetent person just because he's your son, would you? Another elder pressed. Faced with pressure from one family elder after another, Lu Wu, sitting in the middle of the hall, looked as miserable as one could imagine, his face switching between pale and flushed. But at this moment, he had no right to speak. He lacked the qualifications to speak up in this situation because he was a failure. Looking up for a moment at his father sitting in the main seat, emanating an air of authority without anger, Lu Wu's heart was now pounding. He didn't know what his future would hold. He had no strength to argue back, and even if he wanted to seek help from his father, it would be meaningless. Whatever Lu Yun decided would be final. Although Lu Yun was Lu Wu's father, he was the head of the Lu family. Every decision he made was for the family's future. This time, it could be said that Lu Yun had truly lost face. His right hand tightly gripping the armrest of his chair, Lu Yun now wished he could drag Lu Wu out and give him a severe beating. How could he have given birth to such a useless son? It was truly embarrassing, beyond embarrassing. Lu Wu had seen his angry father when he raised his head earlier. In his panic, Lu Wu quickly lowered his head again, not daring to look at his father anymore. Seeing the noisy discussion in the hall, Lu Yun, sitting in the main seat, lowered his hand to pacify the crowd. All right, elders, please be quiet for a moment. Regardless, these people were family members and high-ranking elders. Even Lu Yun, as the family head, needed to give these elders some face. He couldn't rely solely on himself as the family head. These family elders were also his support. Regarding the issue of our Lu family's young master Lu Wu participating in the Spirit Master Academy assessment, I have decided in my heart. From today onwards, Lu Wu will no longer be the young master of our Lu family. As the new young master, we will choose someone from the youngest direct bloodline generation who has everyone's approval starting tomorrow. As for Lu Wu, no matter what, he is still my son. I hope that all the elders, for my sake, will not be too harsh on him. What had happened couldn't be resolved simply by removing the title of young master. Lu Wu should face other punishments, but Lu Yun had taken the initiative to protect Lu Wu at this point. The group of elders hadn't expected Lu Wu to pay a greater price, as it wasn't realistic in the first place. No matter what, Lu Yun was still in charge, and they didn't want to intensify the tension, which could potentially lead to uncontrollable consequences. These family elders were unwilling to see problems arise in the family they maintained. Therefore, these elders had to accept this answer. Since the family head has spoken thus, let it be so, said a white-haired elder sitting to Lu Yun's left, his eyes closed as he spoke slowly. This white-haired elder was the grand elder, the most senior among the elders. Since he had spoken, naturally, no one could object. Chapter 88. Resentment. Lu Wu didn't dare say a word throughout the entire process. Due to injuries sustained in the secret realm, his body was still in pain. However, compared to being stripped of his position as the young master, this pain was nothing. His fists were clenched tightly. If he had the strength, he might have rushed forward to fight the elders to the death. Unfortunately, he didn't. He was merely one of the more talented family members, and his position as young master was solely due to his father being the family head. These elders were no weaker than his father in strength. How could he possibly contend with them? Seeing that the dispute had been resolved, the grand elder stood up and said, "Well, that's all for this issue." Family head, if there's nothing else, we'll take our leave. I'm getting old, and my health isn't great, so I need more rest. Hearing this, Lu Yun quickly bowed and replied, Grand Elder, please take care. Elders, please go slowly. I won't see you out as I have some matters to attend to. As the Grand Elder turned, a faint smile appeared on his lips as he slowly left the hall. The other elders followed suit, leaving only Lu Yun and Lu Wu in the Great Hall. As the elders' figures departed, Lu Yun's eyes grew ferocious. Today, these elders had come to force his hand, aiming to strip his son Lu Wu of his position as young master. Even though he was the family head, he was powerless against so many elders. But who could he blame when his son had encountered such problems during the test? He should have passed to the 99% chance, yet Lu Wu had failed in that 1% margin. Lu Yun walked up to Lu Wu, who was kneeling in the middle of the hall, and looked down at him. Tell me, why were you eliminated? With your strength, self-preservation shouldn't have been a big issue. What exactly did you do? Explain everything clearly. The cold voice made Lu Wu, kneeling on the ground, feel as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, his whole body freezing. Shivering involuntarily, he didn't dare look at his father's face. Trembling, he explained, Father, I had bad luck. In the secret realm, I encountered the black-winged eagle, the natural enemy of the venomous scale python. After recounting everything, including his encounter with his sworn enemy, Yiling, Lu Wu dared not make another sound. However, he didn't mention that he had left his entry point in the secret realm intending to find Yiling, which led to his encounter with the black-winged eagle. After hearing Lu Wu's account, Lu Yun frowned and asked, puzzled, Didn't he help you? Lu Wu was at a loss for words, not knowing how to answer. Finally, he could only shake his head in denial. He had no idea that Yiling had become so strong, as if he were a completely different person. If he had known, he would have asked Yiling for assistance, swallowing his pride. Pride meant nothing compared to his position as a young master and his qualification as a spirit master. Unfortunately, Lu Wu knew nothing at the time. Get out of here. From today on, you're no longer the young master of this family. Remember to keep a low profile, Lu Yun said, his mood foul. He kicked Lu Wu's shoulder, sending him sprawling to the ground. Feeling the pain in his shoulder, Lu Wu was filled with anger. His father had never treated him like this before. After kicking Lu Wu to the ground, Lu Yun left the hall with a cold face, leaving Lu Wu alone. Lying on the ground, Lu Wu was filled with fury, but had nowhere to release it. Everything that once belonged to him was now gone. Before, as the young master of the Lu family, he wielded considerable power, and others generally yielded to him. At this point, having lost his position, he was nothing but a useless person whom no one would respect. Yi Ling! Lu Wu shouted like a vengeful ghost, his expression twisted with hatred. He blamed everything on Yiling. He would never have encountered the black-winged eagle if it were not for Yiling. He would not have been eliminated if it were not for Yiling. If not for Yiling, he wouldn't have lost his position as a young master and his qualification as a spirit master. Everything was because of Yiling. There are those who constantly point the finger at others and never take responsibility for their own mistakes. Filled with resentment towards Yiling, Lu Wu was extremely unhappy. How could someone who was at the bottom of their class suddenly become so powerful? He couldn't understand or comprehend it at all. Chapter 89. The Second Spirit Pet, Aiming for a Flying Type. Compared to Lu Wu, who had endured great hardships, Yiling was having a much more comfortable time. After indulging in a feast at the hotel, the bill came to nearly 8,000 Federation points. Even though Yiling had recently acquired 105,000 Federation points, it was still enough to make him wince. As Qin Shi looked at the total, his eyes widened in disbelief. He had never eaten anything so expensive before. Yiling knew that these 8,000 points weren't that much. Huasiener had intentionally been frugal. Otherwise, 8,000 points wouldn't have been nearly enough. After finishing their meal, the three left the Grand Hotel. Yiling and Qin Shi were headed in the same direction, while Huasiener had someone picking her up. As they parted ways and Huasiener prepared to leave, a mischievous figure suddenly blocked her path. She recognized this person immediately. Linger? What are you doing here? Wait, how did you know I was here? The newcomer was indeed her younger sister, Hualinger. Grabbing Huasiener's arm, Hualinger grinned. Sister, who was that person just now? You seemed quite familiar with him. You usually keep your so-called friends at a distance. Why is this one different? Could it be as he or? As she spoke, a strange smile appeared on Hua Linger's face. She had mistaken Yi Ling for her sister's romantic interest. Hua Xian'er was annoyed by her mischievous sister's actions. She was always jumping to conclusions. Her relationship with Yi Ling was barely more than a normal friendship, though she didn't deny having some fondness for him. Linger, if you keep talking nonsense, I won't take you out to play anymore. Deliberately putting on a stern face, Hua Xian'er knew what her sister feared. Whenever she got angry, her sister would immediately behave. Sure enough, Hua Linger's face fell. She clapped a hand over her mouth and quickly apologized. I'm sorry. Sister, I promise I won't say such things again. She even raised her hand to swear, afraid her sister wouldn't forgive her. Oh, you. Hua Xian'er lightly tapped her sister's forehead, her face full of helpless affection. Meanwhile, after parting ways with Qin Ji, Yi Ling returned home. Tomorrow was the second stage of the examination, so they both needed to rest well and make thorough preparations. Chen Ji, in particular, had sustained some minor injuries during the first stage. Although not serious, they could still affect his performance tomorrow if not properly treated. Back at home, Yi Ling checked on the items he had put up for sale online. Only a small portion of the more common materials had been purchased, while the rare materials had sold out entirely. As expected, the rarer the material, the more popular it was. Even with higher prices, there was no shortage of buyers. After tallying up his current Federation points, Yi Ling found he had about 150,000 to 160,000. Although it was a considerable sum, he didn't have any immediate use for it. The evolution materials for Shuiyu's next stage, the gray-eyed zombie, were already prepared. As for the materials needed for the subsequent yellow-eyed zombie stage, that information wouldn't be available until after evolving to the gray-eyed zombie. Yi Ling now faced another issue. Upon reaching the second order, he would be able to contract a new spirit pet. He wasn't sure what kind of pet to choose, but he had one requirement. It must be able to fly. He had learned his lesson in the secret realm, where he lacked the means to deal with aerial magical beasts and could only react passively to sky-based threats. Therefore, his only requirement for his second spirit pet was the ability to fly. Ideally, it would be able to carry him in flight, but at the very least, it should be able to fly independently. Flying-type spirit pet eggs were inherently rare and often out of stock in the market. Their prices were extremely high, possibly beyond Yi Ling's current means. However, as he was currently at level 9 of the first order, with a level 10 still to go before reaching the second order, there was no need to rush. He could continue saving his Federation points until the right time. Opening his system panel, Yi Ling checked his current stats. Host, Yi Ling. Level, First Order level 9. Spirit Power, 1965/2400. Spirit Techniques, Spirit Chain, level 2. Spirit Shield, level 1. Spirit Vision, level 1. Spirit Pet, Shuiyu. Free points, 2. Quest, Auto Pickup Activation Quest, incomplete. Requirement, reach second order level 1. Reward, activate auto pickup and receive one mysterious item. His maximum spirit power had reached 2,400 points, which was almost impossible for a first order spirit master. Unless one used a large number of rare treasures to increase spirit power, it would be impossible to have such an enormous spirit power reserve. Chapter 90. The second stage of the assessment begins. 2,400 points, this was already a value that only second-order Spirit Master could achieve. With such a large reserve of spiritual power, Yi Ling could now use spirit techniques more flexibly without too many restrictions. He then opened Shuiyu's data. Name, Shuiyu. Type, Undead. Level, First Order level 9. Experience, 99.4%. Growth potential, Uncommon. Growth rate, 68.7%. Equipment, Shuiyu's exclusive blood-stained robe. Talents, Physical damage reduction, intermediate. Magic damage reduction, intermediate. Super speed regeneration, blood mist transformation. Skills, Bloodthirst, Blood Frenzy. Evolution conditions not met. As one progressed, gaining experience from equivalent level monsters became increasingly difficult. Before entering the secret realm, Yi Ling was already at the first order level 9, and now his experience was almost at its peak. Just a little more, and he would advance to the next level. During tomorrow's second stage assessment, new tasks would likely be triggered. Perhaps something is related to experience points, giving Yi Ling a chance to break through to the First Order Level 10. Moreover, given the system's nature, the higher the ranking in such combat assessments, the better the rewards would be. Therefore, Yi Ling was now eagerly anticipating tomorrow's combat assessment. Time flew by, and after a night, the next day arrived. The second stage of the assessment began as scheduled. Those who hadn't passed the first stage weren't eligible to participate in the second stage. All 82 people who had passed gathered at yesterday's square. However, today's square was slightly different, with 4 large arenas in the center. These arenas would be the main battlegrounds for today. All student battles would take place in these arenas. Around them, besides the stands for the Spirit Master Academy representatives, there were additional stands for outsiders to watch. Some of the students who passed the assessment were from prominent families. Naturally, their family members would come to watch their battles and pay attention to their rankings. There were also parents of students who had luckily entered the second stage of the assessment. Besides them, other citizens came just to join in the excitement. The 82 students who passed the assessment, including Yi Ling, stood not far from the arenas, waiting for City Lord Shang Lingkong to speak. On such an important occasion, how could Shang Lingkong not deliver a passionate speech? Congratulations! You have successfully entered the second stage of the assessment. Today, your rankings will be decided through battles. Students with higher rankings will have the opportunity to enter better Spirit Master Academies. So work hard. Give it your all. Show your full strength. Let all the Academy representatives see. After a long, enthusiastic speech, Shang Lingkong finally finished and began to announce the competition rules. The second stage of the assessment is a combat assessment. Opponents will be selected randomly by a computer system to guarantee complete fairness. A battle can end in 3 ways. First, by voluntary surrender. Second, by losing consciousness or unable to fight back. And third, by falling off the arena. Most importantly, when your opponent loses the ability to fight, you are not allowed to harm their life, or you will be disqualified. Referees will determine when a battle is over based on the situation. The winner will advance to the next battle, while the loser will retain their current ranking based on when they were eliminated. The second stage of the assessment had few rules, except for the prohibition of intentionally harming opponents. There weren't many students left, and if deaths occurred, the numbers would decrease even further. This was not what Shang Lingkong wanted to see. The surrounding stands were already full of people, and the 82 people in front of the arenas would be the focus of today's event. The Spirit Master Academy representatives were particularly excited, discussing who might achieve what results. For students with particularly outstanding performance, the lower-tier Spirit Master Academy didn't even need to consider it because they wouldn't get it. Students like Yi Ling, Hua Xianer, Li Shengtan, and Zhang Xingnan were naturally the focus of attention for top-tier Spirit Master Academies. Yi Ling, in particular, had suddenly become a key target for the 4 top-tier Spirit Master Academies. After explaining the rules, Shang Lingkong waved his hand and officially announced the start of the assessment. Well then, let the assessment begin. As Shang Lingkong's voice faded, the names of the 82 people on the big screen began to shuffle rapidly. It seemed to be randomly pairing them up. The big screen was left with only 4 groups of names, 2 people in each group, totaling 8 names. At this time, the referee had already walked onto the stage and loudly read out the 8 names on the big screen. Arena 1, Hefei versus Chen Ji. Arena 2, Li Xingtan versus Feng Wu. Arena 3, Arena 4, Yi Ling versus Tian Chen.